Hello. For this video, we're going to discuss how to find the mean by using an alternate method that is different from our standard method. First, let's go ahead and review what the standard method is. So, usually when we want to find the mean, we would just add all of the numbers together and then divide that sum by the number of numbers. So we would add 57 plus 69 plus 53 plus 57 plus 62 plus 44, and it will divide the sum of all those numbers by 6 because there are 6 numbers. Now, there is another method that we could consider, which may make some of these calculations a bit easier in case we're not comfortable with adding these numbers together or performing the division of the sum. And with this particular method, we would first consider two numbers at a time, preferably either two even numbers or two odd numbers. And and then we would find the means of those. And the reason that we want two even numbers or two odd numbers is because when we find the means of like two even or two odd numbers, the result is always going to be a whole number if we're dealing with whole numbers. So let's consider the numbers 57 and 53. These numbers appear fairly close together, so we can probably use those um, first. So So if we consider these two numbers and we're trying to find the means and we're trying to find the mean of those two, we would have to consider like the number that is the same distance from both 53 and 57 on the number line. And we can see here that the difference between these two numbers is 4. So that means that if you want a number that is halfway between 53 and 57, you just have to add 2 to the 53 because 2 is half of 4. So if we add 2 to 53, we actually end up getting 55, and then we can just put 55 over here as that is the mean of those numbers. Then we could just cross these out. So it's basically a matter of replacing these numbers with 55 so that they're both the same. Okay, and then next we can consider the numbers 62 and 44 since they're both even. Now, if we want to find the difference between these two numbers, of course, we can um, we can actually count up from 44. So 44 plus 10 is 54. And then if we add 8 to 54, then we get 62. So the difference is actually 18. Half of 18 is 9, so we can just add 9 to the 44, and that will give us 53. And then we could just put 53 over here, and then we could just cross these out. Okay, and then we can find the mean of 69 and 57, given that they're both odd numbers. So the difference between 69 and 57 is actually 12, so that means we can just add half of 12, which is 6, to 57. That gives us 63, and then we have 63 here. So we can just cross this out, cross this out. Okay, so now we can treat these numbers like they are our new values, and then we can continue to find means from here. So if we consider these two 55s and these two 53s, um, we can say that the mean between 55 and 53 is halfway between those two numbers, and we can see that the halfway mark is actually at 54. So we could just replace these numbers with 54. All right. Okay. So now that we have 454s and then 263s, we can take advantage of another property related to means, and that is what I like to call the ratio property. So since we have 454s to 263s, we could just say the ratio of 54s to 63s is 4 to 2, and we could just simplify that ratio, and that's going to give us 2 to 1. So we can actually rewrite the data set as like just two 54s and then 163. Okay, so now that we have the data set as two 54s and 163, what we would do next is consider this particular rule where we can actually subtract the two numbers, like the two different numbers. So we have 63 and 54. If we subtract them, then the difference is going to be 9. And what we would do from here is take that difference that we have and divide that by the number of numbers here. So we just divide that by 3. So that means that we're dealing with um, this special number 3 here. And what we would do from here is like once we find that number, we will look for whichever numbers are the majority. So the majority here is 54. And then we have to ask ourselves, do we add that number to the 54 or do we subtract that number from the 54? Um, Basically, since this 63 is higher, we know we're going to have to add to the 54 in order to get the actual value for the mean. So we could just take the 54 and then we could just add 3 to get 57. And therefore, our mean should be 57. So we can go ahead and check this. And that is correct.